I'm here to show you the instructions that are necessary to edit this semi-mediocre picture from Lyon, France, of the cathedral in the old part of Lyon, into a more contrasted, better in my opinion, black and white picture. Alright, so let's just get started. So first of all, you can see that there are people in the picture. I want it to be a natural street photography type thing. I don't like to see this type of guy here who doesn't appear to be properly composed in the picture. However, this lady here, I think she does a good job of, I just like how she affects the picture, looking down, kind of like she's thinking or she's meditating next to the cathedral. As well as these people over here, I like the diversity I see, and I think that adds to the picture, so I'm just going to leave those people in. I'm just going to take off this guy first. Alright, so first of all, let me go to my eraser tool here. And that's what I would recommend doing first, is to first take out all the blemishes and all the things that you do not want in your picture before you start changing the contrast or the color or things like that, or the lighting. I would recommend, like I said, to take out the blemishes first. So let me just increase the size, the eraser basically, put it there. Then I'm going to start erasing. That's what I would recommend doing, using this tool, which is called, yeah, you can see it kind of cut the head off. It's called the spot healing brush tool. It's also used to clean, hairs on someone's face or a stain on a shirt or something like that. And you just kind of paint over it, and it just kind of disintegrates and adds to it blends into the background basically. And as you can see, some stuff is not perfect, so you'll have to just work at it until it gets perfect enough so that when you enlarge the picture, you won't be able to see that someone cut open parts of the picture. So as you can see here, it did a fairly good job right away. I'm just gonna focus on getting that to look like either like a wall or something that looks natural. So now we eliminated the guy that's standing there. What I'm gonna do now is probably crop the rest of the picture, 4:6 in this case, but it enables me to make it look a little bit more like I want to without having to erase too much off the picture. So now that I have most of the cathedral still maintained in the picture, and if I crop that, it doesn't cut anything on this side or on the top. Alright, so as you can see, now not only did we take away the person that, in my opinion, was not positively affecting the picture, we also managed to make her look more in the corner, or make her appear more in the corner, which I think adds to the meditating aspect that I mentioned before. So now what you want to do, once you've cropped everything, all the blemishes that you think that shouldn't be part of the picture, I would recommend focusing on lighting and contrast. So now we want to go into the adjustments panel here in Photoshop, and then you want to go to what I would recommend is using the contrast first. So go to the contrast and just kind of increase it to a maximum. So it's gonna increase the whites and increase the darks. That's the difference here. So I'm just gonna put it where I think is pretty appropriate, like here. Now I'm gonna change the exposure. So the exposure is the amount of light you let inside the sensor when you're taking the picture, or here on Photoshop, it's gonna be more so like the amount of light you adjust. No exposure, and here you got a high exposure. So here the picture would be considered overexposed, and here the picture would be considered underexposed, and we want it to be better, like more normal, more natural. So I think that's kind of where I want it. I didn't change it too much. I added 0.14, but we don't want the sky to be overexposed. So that's the issue that I'm looking at here. I think it looks more natural, and once we put it in black and white, it'll be much easier to play around with that, because, well, you don't see different colors in black and white, and I think that makes it easier to play around with exposure. So I'm not going to touch the exposure too much, but now what I would recommend doing is going to the black and white panels. So I'm going to click on background, and that's what I would recommend doing when you change anything in the settings up here. I would click on the background part of the picture, and then you're going to go to, like I said, image, adjustments, and then you can see black and white is clickable. So click on black and white, and that's going to convert the picture into a monochromatic feel. So now you get to play around with the colors that are in the colored picture, and look at how that would affect the black and white picture. So if I play around with the reds, it's going to affect the facade of the cathedral and parts of the building. There's not a whole lot of red, but I think the facade was kind of beige when I took the picture, so that's why the red is affecting it. I like that. I want to be able to see the different architectural pieces of the cathedral. So I'm going to go probably about here, and I like how this lady here is becoming darker. I mentioned before that I like the fact that she looks down, which to me reminds me of a meditation or thought processing. Having her darker, and I like the fact that she's thinking, and maybe the red, we played around with that. Let's play around with the yellow now. And that's going to affect also the facade, because obviously beige is made up of different things, but including yellow and red, so that's going to affect that. So I'm going to stay on this side, but maybe closer to a little bit more. There we go. I like it there. The greens now. Let's play around with the greens. So that's going to affect the tree in the background. We don't really care about that too much, except I like having a little bit of green trees, so I'm going to put it on the lighter side. The blue now. That's going to affect the sky, obviously. So remember when I said that the sky tended to be easily overexposable by increasing the exposure? Well, this is going to help me counteract that. So it was a little bit overexposed before. Now if I move that towards the left, towards the darker, it's going to play around. It's going to add some contrast to the sky, some grainy feel to the sky. And I don't want to see the grainy like this. That is way too grainy. Even if you enlarge the picture, you're going to see the grains in the sky, and the sky is obviously not made of grains. So I'm going to definitely not do it as much as that. Closer to probably here. I like that here. Okay. Now the issue is by changing the blues in the sky, it brought up some blemishes that I had on my lens when I took the picture. Quickly change the rest here. So the blue and then the purples, I don't think it's going to change a whole lot except for maybe the door on the cathedral. So I want that to be visible, so I'm going to decrease that. All right. And it looks, again, you can still kind of distinguish the parts of the sky that are blemishes on my lens. So I'm going to OK that. Then I'm going to erase those blemishes. Okay, that's one. I don't know if you can see that, but I did erase it. There we go. That's another one. And I can even zoom in with this tool here. Just kind of play around with that. Okay. So now that those blemishes are taken out, I like the feel. It looks like to me, it reminds me of an older, like 1940s picture of middle of Lyon. So I like how that feels. Now I'm going to increase some more contrast because I want it to feel like a deeply contrasted black and white picture. So I'm going to go ahead and increase that. Now I need to increase the brightness as well, which makes it more visible. Okay. That's kind of my my niche when it comes to black and white photography. I like deeply contrasted, sometimes unnaturally deeply contrasted, but that's just how I like my pictures to look, kind of like a 1930s newspaper picture. That's kind of the feel I like to have on my photography. So there you go, guys. I showed you this on Photoshop. I think this is the CC version, so it's one of the more recent software versions of Photoshop, Adobe Photoshop. And this was how to edit a pretty mediocre picture of a city scene into a deeply contrasted black and white picture. Thank you, guys.